CNN's Richard Quest is here to break it all down and try to explain to our viewers and to me why this is happening. Explain the sell-off.
The fundamental reason for the sell-off is the fears that the Fed's high interest rates, 11 increases in 2 years, has basically clobbered inflation and has also hobbled the general economy. We saw that on Friday with the unemployment and the job creation numbers. They were poor to bad. Not dreadful, poor to bad. But now everybody's starting to say the Fed's left it too late to reverse course and cut interest rates. And so this is the effect. Stocks are starting to fall because there is a fear now the economy will slow. Still a minor chance of a recession. Less than 30%, say most people, but it's a question of fear. And since you're talking inside politics, you have, Dana, you have to factor this in to the equation. Donald Trump is already calling this the Kamala crash. There is a political angle to this. The Fed, too late. The Kamala Harris, part of the whole Inflation Reduction Act, the whole stimulus package at the beginning of the Biden administration. There's politics reeking throughout.
I just have one quick follow-up question. If the Fed would have lowered interest rates, as many expected them to do, last week, I believe it was, could this have been prevented?
No, coulda, shoulda, woulda. It would have had to be much earlier. The so-called monetary lag takes about 6 to 12 months. What they would have done would have been to have created an impression that the Fed was helping Kamala Harris. The Fed says, I see no politics, I hear no politics. We move forward regardless of politics. They've done it before. They just move forward. But either side would claim a move at this point, as indeed in September. If they do not move in September, Dana, choose your restaurant, I'm buying your dinner. All right? They're going to move in September. They've telegraphed it so well, people can't accuse them of being politically biased.
That sounds fun. I will choose my restaurant, and we can have dinner no matter what happens. Thanks, Richard. Appreciate it. Joining me here in New York today, CNN's John Berman, Maggie Haberman of the New York Times, and Michelle Price of the Associated Press. I mean, it's so interesting. Yes, okay, the Fed says that they're not political. They try to do things outside of politics, but there are people who think that they didn't do the reduction in part because they worry that the thumb would be on the scale. But if they lower the interest rate, even at all in September, that's closer to the election.
Correct. And they're going to face accusations of playing politics. If that's the case, you have two dynamics here. One is, as Richard said, Donald Trump is already seizing on this. And
let's put that up on the screen while you speak. I'm sorry to interrupt you there. Where is it? There you go. Trump cash versus Kamala crash. Go ahead.
Right. And so I think that this is giving Trump something, to frame the race around, to frame her around after she has had a real honeymoon period in the headlines. And that has been stymieing him and his team in a way that's been pretty palpable. And then you are going to have the vice president have to explain fiscal policy of this administration. You are going to see in the next 3 months, 2.5 months, Republicans and Trump try to tie her to Biden, as firmly as possible. That the Biden record is her record. It's been surprising there hasn't been more of that. I think that this gives them an opening.
John, I spoke to LaFonza Butler, who is the appointed senator from California, also happens to be somebody who was an aide to Kamala Harris, very close with her, and asked her about that very question, about how this is, of course, before the markets dropped. It was on State of the Union yesterday, but it was about how she navigates her own vision for the economy versus the fact that she's part of this administration. Let's listen.
There is no doubt that there's fear and anxiety for working families all across this country. And the history and the record of the vice president is that she has stood arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder with those working families her entire career. I think she's going to own that and expect her to have an economic plan that continues to include all of the American people.
John?
In the, 15 days of her rollout so far, every time she has spoken, she has seemed conscious of this, to try to not make the mistake that President Biden sometimes made when talking about the economy, painting a super rosy picture when people might not be feeling it. She got to the I hear you part of that message more quickly maybe than he did every time she spoke. But the challenge here is this, right? Biden, when he was still running, and his entire team, they were trying to explain why people were feeling so bad about the economy when the numbers were so good. It gets more challenging if the numbers aren't so good, right? So that is something that the Harris team, I don't think were thinking about when they began their campaign 15 days ago, but now have to think about it. It's something, things keep changing and they're in a new place today.
It's 15 days, but it does feel like 15 years.
Yes.
At least 15 months.
Yeah, I mean, the Trump campaign has already started not only using that hashtag, but they've been repackaging the memes that Harris's team has been putting out there. They just a little bit ago this morning posted the brat meme with the stock market is tanking in the font. That everything that has been in this honeymoon period might seem kind of silly compared to when people are looking at their 401ks, or when they're going to start looking at gas prices, or they're looking at what it costs at the grocery store. That the hype that is kind of coming back down to earth, we might be entering that phase that the Trump campaign has been waiting for.
And I'm going to get to MJ Lee in 1 second, but I just want to ask you, because you know Donald Trump's brain on these things more than anything, as you were talking about what they're doing with the brat meme, I'm thinking about back in 2020 when the stock market, the economy was really great pre-COVID, and he was feeling wonderful. And although the stock market isn't, Wall Street isn't Main Street, and they're definitely different, he's a New Yorker, and that's his worldview.
It's his go-to.
It's his go-to.
He has treated the stock market as something of a pole. We saw that in the White House years well before COVID. In 2017, when he did his tax cuts and then he did his tariffs, and he had some of his advisors, most of them outside the White House, but not only outside the White House, saying to him, these are creating cross currents and this is potentially a problem. He would say the stock market's doing great, the stock market's doing great. And he often looks to some tangible, and often it's numerical, sign that he can say, look, see, I was right. And so, look, he has set this up a bit where it's heads he wins, tails everyone else loses. He says if there's a crash.
That's shocking, Maggie.
Right. If it's a crash, it's because, he was right. And if there isn't a crash, it's because they want him back and they know he might be coming back. But I do think, to John's point, voters, it's not Main Street, but there are a lot of voters who understand this, and they can see on their TV screens that this is not good news.
Yeah, no question. Okay, let's turn to what's happening with the vice president, as we are all on pins and needles trying to figure out who she's going to pick. Today, she is going to join the president, though, in the Situation Room to discuss the situation in the Mideast, as she is zeroing in on who she will choose for the ticket with her. Yesterday, she met at the Naval Observatory, the vice president's residence, with at least 3 finalists for the job: Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, and Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. MJ, you are in Philadelphia, where the vice president is going to hold her first rally with whomever she chooses. That will be tomorrow. What are you hearing from your sources today?
Yeah, Dana, sometime in the next 24 hours, we expect Vice President Kamala Harris to unveil what is arguably one of the most important political decisions of her career. I am told that as of this morning, the vice president had not yet actually made that decision, and it is a decision that is widely expected to happen sometime later today. And once that decision is made, she would, of course, inform a small group of advisors, and then, of course, the actual running mate as well. And then sources did caution, just in terms of the timing, that while that is the expectation on the timing, if at the stroke of midnight the vice president has not yet made that decision yet, of course she would take more time.